Tonight on The Roast, Tony Abbott reveals details of his cabinet and confirms that his asylum-seeker plan will begin tomorrow. But first...
Incoming Prime Minister Tony Abbott has unveiled his new cabinet. And in the words of a farmer who can't meet his egg quota, we've got too many cocks in there. Abbott only has one woman in his 20-member cabinet and has copped criticism from many people, including himself.
Plainly, I am disappointed that there are not at least two women in the cabinet.
Because obviously two would have been more than enough. Abbott's remaining optimistic, though.
There are strong and capable women knocking on the door of the cabinet.
But unfortunately, they're not yet strong or capable enough to know the secret man knock. More on cabinet later. Independent Senator Nick Xenophon says he doesn't know why hundreds of his election posters that went missing during the election campaign have started reappearing in the streets of Adelaide. Presumably because the thieves overestimated how much they would get for a Nick Xenophon poster at cash converters. Xenophon said the posters had been put up too immaculately to have been the work of his supporters. Translation, Xenophon thinks his supporters do a shit job. Candidates can be fined if their posters remain up for too long after the election. Worse than the fine, though, is how sad it is to see election posters after an election, like when you see a bus that's still promoting Pacific Rim. Xenophon says the whole situation is all a bit bizarre. You know what else is bizarre? A full-grown man riding a child's car. You'll never escape that video, Xenophon. And now to a new segment called What's Clive Palmer On About Now? Clive Palmer, the billionaire politician operating on a platform of why not, has applied for an injunction against the Electoral Commission over voting discrepancies.
We took the view that it was trying to rig the election.
Of course you did. How else to explain that you're still leading the vote count in the seat of Fairfax? But it's a bit rich for Clive to accuse the AEC of rigging when last night he seemingly tried to rig Q&A. Palmer was asked a question by Clive's candidate for the seat of Sydney, Tim Kelly. Without disclosing he's Tim Kelly, Clive's candidate for the seat of Sydney.
Clive made a point earlier. Why are we in 2013 still using pencils, and in America they at least have a computer system, and other countries?
Tim Kelly there securing his invite to Clive Palmer's Christmas party. But it turned out Clive didn't even need to rig Q&A. He charmed the audience all on his own.
Well, I've thrown kangaroo poo in my time, Dave.
Time to update the business card.
Clive Palmer, mining magnate, future member for Fairfax, kangaroo poo thrower.
And now here's Clive Palmer doing his impression of the Clive Palmer bobblehead.
We've now got a Prime Minister-elect who says climate change is crap and whose own policy doesn't have any support.
Clive either disagrees or doesn't want to eat his veggies. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thanks, Mark. The way he opens his mouth and sound comes out, it's just fantastic. Next up tonight, the announcement of Tony Abbott's cabinet has brought with it some noticeable changes, namely the fact that everything has changed. The Ministry for Science, out. The Ministry for Youth, gone. And the Ministry for the Status of Women, somewhat appropriately not there, seeing as neither are the women. In fact, there is only one female in the cabinet of 19, with Julie Bishop taking up the position of Foreign Affairs Minister. Still, she will be the nation's first female Foreign Affairs Minister, which makes tomorrow a proud day for women everywhere. But Tony Abbott has defended his choice of ministers by saying his ministry is one of the most experienced incoming ministries in our history. And it's true. 15 of the ministers did serve under the Howard government, making them the most experienced ministry in being voted out of ministry in a landslide victory. But on the subject of the lack of women, outgoing Liberal Senator Sue Boyce said, "I think it's shocking and I think it's embarrassing." And she's right, it is shocking. Now,
Tom, you are so easily swayed. Tony Abbott is about to be sworn in as Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister gets the last word on who he thinks should best run the country.
and you don't think that should include more than one woman?
Well, let's look at the numbers. Besides himself, Abbott's ministry contains 41 people, a total of 6 of whom are women. So statistically speaking, it's not that surprising to only have one woman in cabinet, because Abbott's always been clear he wants the right people for the right job and isn't interested in tokenistic appointments, which is responsible because no one wants a Prime Minister who promotes people without the necessary experience. Otherwise, he'd just be leader of the Palmer United Party.
Well, I guess when you put it that way, I suppose when you look at how many women Tony Abbott actually has in his ministry, 1 woman out of 19 in cabinet isn't that bad.
Tom, you are so easily swayed. There are only 6 women in Abbott's ministry in total. 6 women who even have the chance to gain that necessary experience needed to be promoted to Abbott's man cabinet.
Okay, so Tony Abbott hasn't done a whole lot to solve that perceived problem with women.
Now, Tony Abbott has done so little to dispel the idea of what most people think about Tony Abbott that he either must be the most unself-aware man on earth, or this is a deliberate attempt to distract the country's media.
From what?
From this. This is the soon-to-be defunct Department of Science. Unfortunately, having now apparently discovered everything, Abbott has decided science is pointless and contributes nothing to society and doesn't need a department, unlike sport, which is constantly innovating and finding new ways to move different sizes of ball. I hear some of them are even different shapes. Incredible. Now, this will be the first time Australia hasn't had a science minister since 1931, showing that, along with same-sex marriage and women in cabinet, Tony Abbott is committed to pushing Australia forward and into a terrifying wormhole that goes all the way back to the 1920s.
What strange new world is this?
It's not. Women don't get top jobs and science is dead.
Oh, it's the same as back there, but in colour.
Yes, I know. But given that science underpins everything,
hello,
what use will other departments be without it?
Useless.
So what are you doing about the new strains of H1N1?
Well, without science, it's hard to say, but we know sport, so perhaps a brisk jog and then a nice stretch.
Right, no new vaccines or...
No. But if I make this basketball small, it'll look like a pill, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's science.
My pill!
Ridiculous. From the Coalition's epitaph of innovation, I'm Jazz Twemlow.
Which brings us to our final story. Tony Abbott has confirmed his crackdown on asylum seekers will begin as soon as his government is sworn in tomorrow. And that is some serious government efficiency right there. Just brutal efficiency. Or at least he wanted it to be.
Do I think that the boats will stop dead on day one of an incoming government? I wish, but it may not happen.
Might want to rephrase that wish, Mr. Abbott, because dead boats are sort of what got us here in the first place. And it's not going to happen tomorrow anyway, not unless your second wish is to have Poseidon as Minister for Seas. Still, it's official. Operation Sovereign Borders kicks off tomorrow. And if you're not familiar with the Coalition's six-point plan, well, it comprises 6 points and a lot of verbs.
Disrupt, deter, detain, intercept, transfer, assess, return, remove and resettle.
Someone got a thesaurus for Christmas, and those anti-asylum seeker verbs will be implemented by anti-asylum seeker nouns.
Military, police, customs, officials, intelligence, diplomats and many, many others.
Substitute teachers, scary clowns, cockney chimney sweeps, we're all going to stop the boats, us and Indonesia, without whom this just wouldn't work. So let's take a look at what the Indonesian Foreign Minister Marty Natalegawa thinks of Tony Abbott's comprehensive asylum seeker policy. First up, buying back the boats.
Well, he said they clearly reject any attempt by Australia to buy boats from Indonesian fishermen.
Oh, that's a pity. That was a pretty important point. That's all right. What about number 2? Paying Indonesians for informing on people smugglers.
Indonesia would also reject the other measures such as paying Indonesians for information.
Gone. Okay, so there appears to be some disagreement over some of the minor details, but at least they're on board with the overall policy.
So he particularly said that the policy itself is a problem.
I'm sure he didn't mean that. Politicians are always shooting off their mouths in public about foreign policy.
Bear in mind that Dr. Natalegawa is normally very measured and very diplomatic in what he says particularly in public.
What is this, some kind of joke?
They have laughed off the policy and scoffed at it.
Fine, we'll do it without you, Indonesia. It doesn't take two to tango. Just ask Julie Bishop.
We're not asking for Indonesia's permission. We're asking for their understanding.
Our future foreign minister there apparently forgetting that being a diplomat usually involves being diplomatic. But then again, maybe we're being a bit too harsh. I mean, after all, no one can be expected to be a great foreign minister on their first try.
Tom, you are so easily swayed! Julie Bishop's been shadow foreign minister for the last 4 years, which is exactly the same job as foreign minister, just on the other side of the room. And if Bishop wants to keep her new position, she needs to up her game, because there are 5 women and 35 men knocking at that door who would be happy to take the job.
Well, that could be a good way for Tony Abbott to get 2 women in his cabinet.
No, he'd just be replacing the current woman with another woman.
Oh.
And statistically, that woman would probably be a man. Good night.